The Chicago Bulls over the last couple of weeks have been making a few signings to fill out the rest of their training camp roster, and the latest of these moves include Illinois native Liddell coming onto the team with a training camp deal. With this move, the Chicago Bulls have completely maximized their training camp roster, as their roster now sits at 21 players. So in this video, we're going to be talking about who we think is actually going to be making the cut for the opening day roster come opening day. Before we get into it all, make sure you hit that like button if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Let's talk about Liddell first, and we're going to move into all the signings that the Bulls have done in the past couple of weeks in the offseason. So the Bulls have went out and signed Liddell. I overall think this is a really solid deal. Liddell is an Illinois native. He was picked by New Orleans in the 2022 draft. He was the guy that I wanted the Bulls to actually go after in the 2022 draft. And it's kind of just like a full circle moment, like, oh wow, Liddell is now going to be on the Bulls and potentially fighting for a NBA contract or for a two-way deal for this upcoming season. If you're not aware of Liddell, he actually had a pretty good year last year in the G Leagues. He averaged 17.7 points, 7.8 rebounds. Not a lot of, not as many games, but overall, I think this is just a good overall signing for the front office, as maybe Liddell is going to be getting that last two-way contract that the Bulls can offer, or maybe he actually does make the NBA team, but who knows. But with this deal, the Bulls are now sitting at 21 players. Casey Johnson kind of did a really good job of breaking this all down, where that the Bulls roster now sits at 21, which is the maximum amount of players allowed for a training camp roster. So unless the Bulls make some other move here, they cannot go out and sign any more training camp deals. This is it. This is going to be the 21 players coming into training camp, which is going to be coming up very, very soon here. So this is going to be a serious training camp battle, because the Bulls have a two-way contract to offer, which is something that a lot of players could be fighting over. But theoretically, the Bulls only have 14 guaranteed contracts or they currently only have 14 guaranteed contracts on the roster. They could theoretically have an opening roster spot, the 15th spot, for training camp to be up for grabs. So we'll see what actually happens here. But to kind of break it all down, here is the Bulls salary cap table. Now, if you're wondering about the Bulls and who is currently on the roster, it's guaranteed. So for everyone from Levine all the way down to Craig is guaranteed. Bitum is not guaranteed, but Julian Phillips is guaranteed. So if you include all those players that I said are guaranteed, that's 14 players. Now, the 15th spot right now currently belongs to Bitum. He is on a non-guaranteed contract, though. Therefore, if the Bulls decide to actually waive him before opening night, which is when his contract becomes guaranteed, the Bulls actually don't have to pay his contract whatsoever. His contract will not be on the books. So the Bulls can waive him for free and then go ahead and use that roster spot for whoever they want to sign. So something just to keep in mind here, because I honestly think that the 15th roster spot is going to be open for this training camp. Now, the Bulls have went out and signed a couple of guys in the offseason to training camp deals. If you kind of actually doesn't display it on here, I don't think, but a lot of these are on Exhibit 10 deals, which are just training camp deals, pretty much. It's just an easy way to sum it up. But if you look here, the Bulls have went on to sign Talen Horton-Tucker, Kenny Lofton Jr., and Marcus Domask, who was on the Bulls Summer League team. He is from the University of Illinois. And then they've just went on and obviously signed Liddell. So there's going to be a lot of fight just to try to get that final roster spot. But then also keep in mind this. The two-way contracts currently on the roster are Adama Sanogo and DJ Stewart. You're allowed to have 3 two-way contracts on the roster. So there is a two-way contract spot open. Kenny Lofton Jr., Marcus Domask, and Liddell all qualify to be able to be offered a two-way contract. So I really do think that the two-way contract battle is going to be between Lofton, Domask, and Liddell. Personally, if I had to make a guess who's going to get it, it's going to be Liddell. I think that would be the smartest decision and overall best decision for the team. And I hope that the front office kind of figures that out. But at the end of the day, though, training camp is where that's going to be decided, because Liddell obviously had that injury. So maybe there is some sort of injury issue. And, Lofton Jr. could just obviously outplay him. So it'll be a very, very interesting battle for the last two-way contract for the Bulls. And we're going to see who ends up getting it. But my guess personally, if I had to make a bet, it's going to go to Liddell, because I just think that makes the most amount of sense. Now, for the 15th roster spot, I want to talk about a couple of things. First off, let's look at what the Bulls' salary situation is currently at. Their current active cap right now is at $166 million. The reason why I bring this up is because it's kind of interesting when you look at it. The Bulls actually have some tax space before they actually hit the luxury tax. And we know the Bulls are trying to avoid the luxury tax, right? So if you're wondering, the luxury tax threshold for this season is at $170 million. Okay, the Bulls' active cap is at $166 million. So you could just go down here if you really wanted to. The Bulls' tax space, or space before they actually hit the luxury tax, they have about $4.7 million to spend. Which, if you actually look at it, the Bulls do have some of the they can use the biannual, they can use some of their mid-level exception that they have available, but most likely they're going to just be giving out a minimum contract at the end of the day. So, for example, here, let's just talk about the 15th roster spot between Bitum and Horton-Tucker. If Bitum is just waived and they just go ahead and sign Horton-Tucker, it's pretty much like a simple swap. Horton-Tucker will cost just a tad bit more money, but at the end of the day, it's like you're just swapping contracts, and the active roster salary cap is just going to be stuck at $166 million. However, there is something that I think that we're not exactly looking at, and it could be a potential idea. And I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm just kind of throwing this idea out here. But let's just talk about this situation here. There is a guy currently on the Bulls roster who is getting, is a guaranteed contract. He's getting paid this year and is the player option for next season. He's a guy that I said the Bulls would. I said the Bulls should sign last offseason. I was very happy when they did sign him, and I ended up being completely wrong about his impact on this Bulls team, unfortunately. And I will be the first person to say that I was completely wrong about him. But he did not play well at all last season. He is unfortunately an undersized guard, and due to his age, he falls under the veteran status, and is probably going to be looking to go to a veteran or a winning like championship level team, like he did when he was with the Milwaukee Bucks. And that is Jevon Carter. In theory, okay, the Bulls actually could waive Jevon Carter, and they can go ahead and sign Talen Horton-Tucker. They could also then keep Bitum, and they would still be under the luxury tax. Okay, it's just a thought. Right now, obviously, the problem with doing this is that you would have dead money of $6.5 million and $6.8 million for this season and next season. That's dead money that you cannot move. Now, there is a new thing in the CBA where, you just eat the dead money this season, but then for next season and at $6.8 million, you can then actually stretch and waive it. Just stretch it out. Even though the player's already been waived off the team. I won't get into the details of that, but it is just kind of an idea that maybe the Bulls are thinking about, where they just waive Jevon Carter for now. They eat the $6.5 million this season because it doesn't really matter too much this year. Next season, though, of his $6.8 million, they would just stretch it out over however many years. I think it'd be 3 years, and just eat the money that way. Again, I'm not saying that this is something that they're going to do, or this is actually the smartest thing to do. I'm just saying that it is theoretically an idea. If you're wondering about the minimum contracts, though, for this year, and how much money or how much it would count against the cap. So, for example, if the Bulls went out and tried to sign Talen Horton-Tucker to a minimum level contract, he has 5 years of NBA experience. So his salary will be $2.4 million. But because of how NBA minimum contracts work, the cap hit actually is only at $2.08 million. No matter what, the cap hit is always going to be at the 2 years of experience or lower for minimum level salaries. So, for example, like Talen Horton-Tucker, he's a 5-year vet. He will be getting paid this much money, but the salary cap is only this much money. So let's say, for example, the Bulls actually do go ahead and waive Jevon Carter. They keep Bitum, and then they go ahead and sign Talen Horton-Tucker. Then they only beat out $168 million then, and he would still be under the luxury tax. So again, I'm not saying this is going to happen. It most likely won't happen because the Bulls are going to try to find a way to get Jevon Carter's money off the books in a trade somehow, or maybe they just wait until next season, honestly, and see if he declines his player contract or player option. But it is just kind of an idea to kind of think about, because if the Bulls are truly about going into the rebuild and going through the youth era, which I have doubts that they are, then waiving Jevon Carter would not be the worst thing in the world, because then you would be able to keep both Bitum and bring in Talen Horton-Tucker if you actually like him, or bring in Kenny Lofton Jr. for God's sake. But it would just open up another roster spot for another young player as we try to get offload the other veterans like Vucevic, Paul, and Levine, which we'll see how those guys get offloaded eventually. So again, just an idea. But to wrap up this video, I'm gonna make my prediction personally, and I'm gonna say that the Bulls do not waive Jevon Carter. I think he'll be on the team for this season because it's just how the money is. which again, it's not bad business just to keep him on the team. But if I had to make a decision, I think it's going to be between Bitum and Horton-Tucker for the last roster spot. And like I said earlier, I think Liddell is going to get the last two-way contract. But I think the last roster spot is going to be between Bitum and Horton-Tucker. And if I had to make a prediction, it's going to be Horton-Tucker who's going to make the final roster spot. And it's for a couple of reasons. One, this front office very clearly is just going out and getting Chicago or Illinois native guys. Okay? I mean, starting with just drafting Ayo Dosunmu, who's turned into a very good player. I'm not saying that, like they have Ayo on here just because he's from Chicago, but, starting with Ayo Dosunmu, going out and signing Javon Carter, drafting Matas Buzelis, going out and obviously getting now E.J. Liddell. Horton-Tucker is also a guy that is from Chicago, okay? And knowing that the Bulls are always about trying to sell tickets, they would go ahead and just bring on the Chicago native guy just to, bring in an extra few tickets if they could. That personally would be a reason, just a major reason why I think that Horton-Tucker would make it over Bitum. Now, another reason why is this. Horton-Tucker is younger than Bitum, so if the Bulls look at maybe age as like a big factor, then they'd be like, you know what? We're going to trust the guy who has a lot more experience, but is also younger than Bitum. We're going to go ahead and choose this guy as the guy we're going to take a flyer on and see how he performs for the season, or, maybe we send him down to the G League or whatever. But thirdly, I don't know what it is about this front office, but for some reason, they just straight up do not prioritize shooting. They say it in their press conferences like, oh yeah, we're aware of the shooting issues. We're going to try to go out and get shooting, but they just don't prioritize or care about shooting, it just seems like. So if they can choose between a older Bitum who is a better shooter, but a younger Talen Horton-Tucker who is probably a better defender, but shoots much worse from the field, and especially from 3-point range, they're probably going to choose the guy who they think is a better defender and is a much worse shooter, because that's what they've done every single time. Or those are the guys that they targeted a lot. And unfortunately, Talen Horton-Tucker is a prime example of a 4 in Billy Donovan's system in his rotation. Like, yeah, he's listed as a shooting guard right now, but I mean, go look at Javonte Green. He played the 4 position here, and as much as I love Javonte Green, he was not a good shooter. So if I had to make a guess, because the Bulls just they like the guys that are, the guys that can switch on defense, they can guard multiple positions, theoretically, have longer wingspan, I'm going to guess they choose Talen Horton-Tucker over Bitum. If I was running the front office, I would not do that move. I think that would be a pretty bad decision, because I think Bitum actually has like a legitimate chance to stay in the NBA just due to his 3-point shooting and his athleticism. But I'm going to go ahead and say that my guess is that Horton-Tucker beats Bitum for the 15th roster spot at the end of training camp. I hope I'm wrong, because I would like to see Bitum stay on this team, actually, because I think he might actually get playing time, but we'll see at the end of the day. But please go ahead and leave me in the comment section down below who you think is going to get the last 2-way contract between Lofton Jr., Domask, and E.J. Liddell, and then who you think is going to be making the 15th roster spot. And honestly, here's a funny thing about it. It could be someone that is not currently on the team, right? Because the Bulls could theoretically just waive all these guys and their money counts nothing against the cap, and they could go ahead and sign someone else as the 15th spot on the roster. So go ahead and leave in the comment section down below who you think is going to be making the opening day roster come opening day. That's all from me, guys. Make sure you hit that like button if you're new to the channel. Hit that subscribe button. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.